several action items, but I think they'll be short.
Yeah.
Were you coming to tell me anything else, Josh? I'm sorry.
No, I just got a text from Praveen that he's running 10 minutes late.
Okay.
So.
So we can go through the agenda through financial updates.
Exactly, because he's always been.
The ethics hotline is not an action item, it's just a informational. So we actually can get through, what's the desktop app with for? We're gonna use.
Colors.
Right, so I guess we have, yeah, so we have everybody except the two who have indicated they're running late. We know what, and Praveen said 5:45 too.
Yeah.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead? We'll go ahead and get started, and then hopefully they'll be here by the time we get to any votes. Good evening and welcome to the November meeting of the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors. It's very weird looking at this table with such an intimate group because we've grown so much over the years. So, but thank you all for being here, and thank you to those who are joining us online as well. I know a couple of our members are feeling a bit under the weather tonight. I'll ask our secretary to call the roll.
Chair Kaplan.
Here.
Vice Chair O'Connell. Harish Gudger. Matt Harris.
Here.
Praveen Kathpound. Hillary Orr. Here. Kirsten Phelps. Here. Laura Gates. Ajayesha Thomas. Arthur Wicks. Chair Kaplan, you do not have a quorum. Those absent are Jesse O'Connell, Harish Gudger, Praveen Kathpound, Laura Gates, Ajayesha Thomas, and Arthur Wicks.
Okay, well, I know Arthur has an excused absence. I know Laura is not feeling well tonight. Jesse should be joining us virtually shortly, and Praveen and Ajayesha are on their way. And Harish has work travel, so he has excused absence. Okay. Let's move into public comment. So I know looking around the room, it's all staff, but we will ask if there's anybody who would like to be recognized. So first, because we didn't have anybody.
I did have
Oh, we did.
a couple
Okay.
pre-register. John Curry is the first one.
Okay. So let's see if they're on the Zoom.
I don't see that name on the Zoom.
Okay, the second one is Terry Winston.
I don't see a Terry Winston.
That's it.
So we'll ask if there's anybody on the Zoom who didn't pre-register who'd like to be recognized. If you do, please use the raise hand function. And before we recognize you, have a statement that I'll read that just sets kind of our tone for engagement and public comment.
No hands have gone.
Okay, we'll move on from public comment then. Next is the chair's report. So I just want to first say happy day after election. A lot of us have been talking about just, a lot of seismic change in Virginia and wondering kind of what that will mean for some of the programs that we depend on. Certainly, we hope that we will have a very transit positive General Assembly and a lot of enthusiasm towards what we do in moving people in the governor's mansion as well. It was really a great day to see a lot of engagement and really, really high turnout among voters in the city. I was going to ask Jesse to give us some insight into the groundbreaking for the DASH facility expansion, which I know Josh will talk about later on. Jesse represented our board. I appreciate him doing so. And I saw there's a press release that was issued, and I saw some wonderful pictures of the event, including the hard hats that everybody was wearing, and that our mayor, some of our state officials and DASH folks were helping to move dirt literally to help get the project jump started. So that looked like a lot of fun. I was very sorry I wasn't there, but it's a really exciting project, and there's been funded through Smart Scale. I look forward to hearing more about the event and the groundbreaking. I did also want to acknowledge that if you're on our DASH listserv, you're aware that we are recruiting now for our board member vacancy, and Matt and Jesse are our committee who will be reviewing those applications. I saw that you've set a December 1st deadline for folks to apply. This is a seat that's reserved for a board member who has public transportation expertise, and so there were some examples included in the announcement of things that would be qualifying. But if you're interested in it, please do submit an application, and we look forward to considering the applicants and finding someone who will be a great addition to our board. That's all I have. I'll turn it over to Hillary for a TNS report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. couple items there. I had several items on the board report. I don't think I need to go through all of them, but just a couple that I want to highlight. So in October, the Commonwealth Transportation Board actually came together and voted to fund one of the smart scale projects that NBTA had submitted on behalf of Alexandria and Arlington. And so it was a $31 million application, and that's looking at the Shirlington, kind of the Shirlington circle around 395. And there's a couple intersections in Alexandria at Quaker Lane, and then at Custis or Martha Custis in Gunston, where there are pretty big changes that would take place as part of that project. So that's an exciting win, since Alexandria did not receive much smart scale money in this past round. Actually, Northern Virginia did not receive much smart scale money in this round. So we were excited to get that win. Let's see what else. So on couple of weeks ago, there was a Duke Street land use plan. They've had several community meetings, but this one was focused on transportation and housing. And so city staff were there. We talked about the Duke Street Transitway and really tried to highlight what the plan was focusing on with transportation, and that it was not, we are not reopening the design of the corridor. We have the design. It has been approved by council. We are moving forward with that design, but we're talking about how do we plan around that for the right land uses. We got really good questions at that meeting, several pertaining to dash and service and just transit around the corridor. So that was really good. Also at the end of October, our paratransit program manager did a presentation to city council on the program. So in the spring, city council had put a quarter of the paratransit budget in contingent reserves and kind of said, we want to see if we can find efficiencies in the program. But it also gave staff the opportunity to present a lot of things that we'd actually already been working on to make the program, modernize the program and make it more efficient and cost effective as well. So, you know, it's a federally required unfunded program that is inherently expensive. But there are a lot of cost efficiencies that we are looking at. And I think the paratransit team in Alexandria is doing a lot more than I've seen other cities do. And so that's been really exciting. It was a really nice opportunity. Council seemed to really support a lot of the efforts going on with that program. They released the funds, and, you know, with paratransit, if we're trying to provide service to more people, it's going to cost more, right? It's a per trip cost. So that's just kind of inherent in the nature of it. But the biggest thing we're looking at is leasing paratransit vehicles. So the city would purchase the vehicles and we lease them back to the vendor. So one, if we can get grant funded vehicles, we're buying them at a discount. So they're paid off within a year and a half, basically. And then you're just reducing your paratransit bills each month. But even if the city buys them within 4 years, we paid them off. And so those last kind of 3-4 years of their life cycle, we are able to have a lower cost, but also have a better vehicle. We're looking at electric vehicles that are a lot more comfortable for our riders. So that was a very positive update to city council. Let's see, the West End Transit Center, West Alexandria Transit Center. We've been doing some engagement on that. There'll be a pop-up on, I believe, the 19th to get feedback from people on what they want to see. We'll show some kind of concepts and hear from the community about that. But we are trying to move forward with the design. The street is in place. We are putting some bus shelters out soon. And so we'll have that kind of temporary setup there, but the buses will be using that and they will not be in the parking garage anymore. So they'll be on that new street. So I also had put some notes about SJ28 and DMV moves on here. Josh can probably speak to those better than I can. But there's been some movement, you know, and there's a lot of talk. It's still, everything's kind of in the works, understanding what's going to happen with funding for transit. We're all watching it. But I think a lot of the decisions will kind of take place over the next legislative session.
I just say this report is so thorough and comprehensive because anything you want to know about transit and even other transportation, sort of intersecting factors is here. And it's almost a shame that it's kind of just shared with us and the board packet. I know you have a lot of means of pushing out some of the communications in here, but I think it deserves a wider distribution because it really, I learned some things, for example, I did not, as a VRE rider, didn't realize the Long Bridge shutdown. That's like, I learned that from this report. So even as somebody who tries to follow city news, there's a lot of great information here. And so I encourage you to share, to share it as broadly as you can, and even some good new bus service that's starting with WMATA as well. That's very exciting, take people in DC. Did have one just comment on the paratransit. So you may know when City Council some years ago had made some amendments to the dash to ATC charter and bylaws, they had actually given us oversight of paratransit, which I know we did an overview a few years ago, but certainly want to invite anytime, that you're considering changes or want some kind of public airing of that, to feel free to ask for time on our agenda to do that. Because I don't know, I've always thought that probably belonged with the Commission on Persons with Disabilities, but I also understand since TNES doesn't staff that commission, how that could create some difficulties in terms of coordination. But, since we have it, we would love to kind of be a way to help you get, feedback and engage with, the people who use paratransit. But it's really exciting to hear the changes that are being.
Yeah, thank you. I think anytime, we can look in when there's a late agenda, maybe January. I think December's probably pretty full, but maybe in January, we can have Owen come and speak and kind of give this similar presentation. I know he's talked to the Transportation Commission. We really wanted to make sure council was seeing this. And he has done touch points with the persons with disabilities and Commission on Aging, I believe, as well. But I think this is a good opportunity for him to share with this board, particularly as we have oversight, what we're doing and answer any questions you all might have. There's a lot of changes happening with it, and they're very positive.
So I don't know if this is for you or for Josh, but a couple of years ago, we had a discussion on how many bus stops or shelters were ADA compliant and lighting and all that. Do we have any progress report on that, or is that something that's just ongoing?
We sure do. We have a dashboard. I think it was in the last packet.
Last page, okay.
But yeah, I think if you go to, let's see, bus stops, we have a bus stops website and we have a dashboard, and you can play around and you can see
What's
how many are ADA
compliant?
compliant. Let's see. You
And-
kind of see it here, our interactive dashboard. So you can go and you can play
cool.
agencies, ADA compliance, you can look at bus stops with shelters, trash can, all that stuff. So we're trying to keep that up
Is
to
that
date.
pushed out to the ridership, or is it like promoted on maybe the buses or?
I don't think so. It's just on our city website. We've shared it. We share it with boards and commissions. I think it might have gotten a nod in Alex now.
Oh, okay,
It might have
good.
from the Transportation Commission docket, if they're watching, maybe if they didn't put it in, maybe they would.
Are there a lot more that need to be in compliance, or we?
We have 503 we have 689 total stops and 503 are compliant. Yeah, I wanted like can we have one of the thermometers, to show our progress?
We're under half when we start talking about this.
And
Yeah.
does that also include like stops that are coextensive with WMATA, or?
Yes,
Okay.
this is, you can sort
Okay,
on here and see the different stops and different, let's see what happens
Cool.
with the numbers if I play around.
Like if it's a
Yeah.
joint bus stop, would it count as a dash bus stop on
Yes.
that?
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. And then you can see just in fiscal year 25 to now, we've made 63 new bus stops compliant.
Cool.
Yeah, so
And
that's.
we've also
that's a big-
removed bus stops too, so hopefully,
That helps our issue.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Do you think on that point, then I had one other point. I think it would be awesome to get that out on like Dash social media or city social media as well. Like I think people would be interested because people don't even necessarily know what bus stops are and they're new to the idea of riding a bus. So that could be really, really helpful.
Mhm.
I just also wanted a quick comment and shout out on the Duke Street land use update in it. I was able to join virtually the meeting on the 23rd and just wanted to give a shout out to you and to city staff and others who presented there. That it was really just tremendous job. There were great questions and just like really good concrete answers. I thought, there was some discussion and example of, like Potomac Yard and how traffic times actually went down, that I just thought was really compelling and really helpful. So just wanted to give my kudos and appreciation and hope we can continue to sort of communicate in similar fashion. It really resonated with some folks.
Yeah, thank you. I think, that Potomac Yard example is something when you start to say like, well, what happened here? And what person's referring to is we pulled daily traffic on Route 1 from like 2000 to 23 or something. And you saw the bars go down and we overlaid development in the area. And so that line's going up. So you're seeing the more density we have, more traffic went down. And yes, Potomac Ave is also probably took some traffic off, but that just speaks to why we need connected neighborhoods and grid streets and other ways for people to get around. And so sometimes when we have thoughts like, what happened there? Is that going to be an example? And then you pull the data and you're like, yes, this is telling a really good story that we want to share. So we were pleased. Thank you for
Very helpful. As somebody who kind of lives in one of the impacted neighborhoods, that the land use plan is covering, like I found it very helpful as I have conversations with my neighbors. So thank you.
Hey, we just finished the TMS report. Did either of you have questions on so?
No.
Yeah, I had a question about the West End transit, like bus center. I haven't looked at the final plans, but I'm curious how, like, what's the proximity of the sort of bus bays to any sort of like retail, commercial activated space?
So there are no final plans. We're just
Okay.
starting design.
That's why I haven't
Yeah.
looked at them.
Right, yeah, that's why you have not seen them, they don't exist yet. But the street was planned and through the small area planned, and so if you look at kind of, you can actually, I almost think from Google Street View or Google Maps, you can see where it is. There are, I want to say it's residential on one side, on the other side, there, I think is gonna be some retail. I mean, it's all pretty close and connected, and there's a lot of different blocks that are, housing with retail on the bottom. It's kind of on the other side from the hospital. It's a couple blocks away from the hospital. But if you pull up any maps, you can kind of see where that street is. It's Heck Street is what it's called.
Okay.
So it'll be a bit, it's the whole street is kind of the transit center. And then what we're looking at is how do we design the shelters, the covering, the lighting, the seating, and how do we make that street into a transit street? That doesn't just feel like sidewalks with standard bus shelters on it.
Okay.
Make
great.
it more
That's what I was
a
asking.
place. We
I
have
have
so-
some of those.
Yeah, and we actually started by hiring an architectural firm. So that's who we're working with right now. We're trying to get like kind of some really good designs and get feedback from the community on what they want to see, what makes sense in this area, so that we can come up with a concept to then fully design.
We always leave time for board members who serve on other boards and commissions or community groups, have anything they want to bring forward for the benefit of the group? Anyone? All right. Jesse, I don't think you were with us when we started the meeting. I was thanking you for representing the board at the groundbreaking for the facility expansion, and wanted to ask, I thought when you came on screen, you might have your hard hat with you, but
oh, they didn't let me keep the hard hat, much to my dismay. I did ask though. Thank you, and sorry I'm not with you all in person tonight. I'm a little under the weather, but I still did want to join and participate remotely. But yeah, the groundbreaking was fantastic. Really well organized all around, really great event.
we appreciate you being here tonight and for representing us. Thank you. All right,
Oh,
we'll move
and
into.
Ajacia was also there. Ajacia was she came about partway through and represented us as well.
Got some photo
Oh,
ops.
sure.
Didn't put any photos in here, shouldn't.
Shame.
I'll
Because it didn't
circulate them.
happen.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move into our regular business. We have our meeting minutes from the October meeting. Are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes as they were presented? If not, is there a motion to adopt them? So moved by Matt, is there a second?
Second.
Kristen, all in favor?
Aye.
And financial updates.
So got two financial updates here. The first one is just an updated fiscal 2025 year end. At our meeting last month, we mentioned that the surplus that you're seeing was largely due to the untransferred United Healthcare costs. And we mentioned that once we realized that those weren't being transferred, we kind of held off on doing anything with that surplus until we could reconcile that. So we've subsequently reconciled that. The year is now officially closed, and it just confirms that we did end the year with a balanced result, a very modest surplus of about 35,000. So second year in a row of surplus, so definitely a good thing there.
Nice.
The next item, I could open up to any, okay. The next item is just our first results, our first look at FY 26. Previously, we didn't have any financial results just because of the timing of the city's close process. We now have the first 3 months, so the first quarter. We are showing a projected year-end balanced budget once again. You will notice that year to date, there's a significant surplus and a high variance to the budget surplus. That is primarily due to the timing of invoices. We have a number of invoices that we have committed and costs that we've encumbered, specifically related to maintenance repairs that we have not yet been invoiced for. So that is why the year-to-date surplus looks much higher than our projected year-end surplus. So that is our first look at FY 26.
Also timing of how some payroll comes through at the beginning.
The timing, yeah. So our timing, July is always kind of a weird month because the first payroll is mostly accrued back to the prior fiscal year just because of the date periods that it covers. So July is a one payroll month, where most payroll months are 2 payrolls. This year it happens to be that July was 1 payroll month, August happened to be a 3 payroll month, September was your typical 2 payroll month, but that July month does contribute a little bit to the year-to-date variance as well.
Any questions, Raymond?
This is our first time having merch sales as a line item in the budget.
It is. Yeah,
Alright.
now that we've got
I usually don't like to spend any meeting minutes on small things, but that's notable. It's a new line.
Yeah. Last year, any of the merch sales, once we started to do that, was rolled up into miscellaneous, but we thought, now that we're really trying to get some merch, some Dash swag out there and all that other stuff, we'd have it as its own line item so that we could see.
Now you're gonna get
Practical.
questions about it in meetings, just like you do about charter and
Yeah.
advertising.
I believe we're working on opening up an online store of some sort.
Wow.
I would recommend stickers, cause like Dash fans with kids, man. There's so many Dash stickers.
Let's do sticker bundles to be able to ship something to you.
Yeah.
Like set of 20 stickers, sending one in the mail would be a
Yeah,
little.
that would be great.
Can I ask actually on that subject, the miscellaneous revenue, because that line item does have quite a bit of revenue in it. Is that like metal from buses
So miscellaneous revenue, it comprises a couple things. Surplus sales go in there. That's a portion of it. So anytime we sell a bus, selling furniture, we've sold a decent amount of furniture. Gifts or donations go in miscellaneous revenue. That doesn't always happen, but it has happened in the past. We've gotten gifts. Condo Association a couple years ago gave us a gift just because they loved what Dash did, which was a nice thing. What the bulk of miscellaneous revenue is, however, it's actually insurance recoveries. And it's because of the way that the accounting for the city works, it has to be recorded as a revenue. So like when we send a bus out and we just pay the deductible, that cost will initially be incurred on the maintenance expenditures. And then once we get the reimbursement from insurance, it hits our miscellaneous revenue. That's what the bulk of that number is.
We have a gift giving policy for condominiums that do things like that. I mean, is there a quid pro quo they're looking for? Or are there ethical issues we have to be concerned with?
We don't have a policy specifically around it.
Okay.
I mean, we try to consider like are they asking for anything? Was there anything in this ask? This was like, I think 2 fiscal years ago, this they just had a surplus and they loved Dash so much. It's been a bunch of-
I got in trouble for giving to like a public dog rescue and they said, oh no, you gotta do it through a 501(c) or whatever. So,
We can certainly look into
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I mean, you might, don't worry. Just,
It does
just send all
happen.
checks to me and we'll be.
It was just monetary, or did they want to give Dash something? They asked, or they
They're-
wrote a check to,
they just wrote a check to Dash. Yeah, this was 2 fiscal years ago. They, a lot of their residents wrote us and they had a surplus in their condo association and their board
We had
voted
a
to.
donation box on everyone's.
Game rights for bus stops or something.
well, thanks, that's. Learn something new.
Thank you.
City finance and budget stuff.
All right, to our general manager report, I think Yvonne looks like enjoy some table.
Sure, I'll ask Ivana to come
Gail
up
is
and
with
join
us
us.
as well.
And I'll introduce the subject as you all know, you all tasked me and Yvonne and Mary Gail to work on some enhancements to ethics policies and processes at Dash. So I think Yvonne's got a great update for you about the overall process and the process with the board. So she's here to present, and obviously Mary Gail is here. And then I've told Mary Gail that when this presentation is over, she can hop off to go do other things and also not charge us for more time. But I'll hand it over to you, Yvonne.
Thanks, Josh. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you. Firstly, before we go into the sort of slide, you've seen a version of this before, but we're super excited about this. The team is actually also very excited about this. I want to thank Matt and Arish. Huge thanks for spending some time with me and going over the ethics policy. It's been a really good time, deep dive review prior to our call, so I appreciate that. And we firstly just wanted to say that, you know, this ethics hotline is something new for Dash. We did look at 3 different vendors, and the vendor that we chose is not only cost effective, but it also gives us quite a bit of enhancements, I guess you could say. There's a case management tool that kind of provides us with some reports and trending. And then it also provides a really easy way for employees to interact with the platform. They can actually report any type of ethics violation through 6 modes. So you can call in, in your first language, and the report would go through a translator. It would come back to us in English. And then the report would be automatically routed depending on who's named in the report. So that's what's shown here. So if the complaint's about an hourly or supervisory level, it would go to our HR manager or myself. If it's about a manager, director, or any member of our senior management team, it would come to me for investigation. If it's a member of our executive leadership team, of course, that would go to Josh. And if Josh is named, which is kind of what the sort of impetus of this portion of it was as it relates to your all's role, of course, that would automatically be routed to Mary Gail, and there would be there's sort of a firewall in the tool, so it says this type of report, or the report that names Josh, would only go to her. So it would only go to the general counsel. And then as the steps are related, what is shown here is if Josh is named, the report would be translated if it's necessary, and it would be routed to Mary Gail, and Mary Gail would confer with Chair Kaplan to talk about what is the report. Now, of course, we know we might get some frivolous reports, but if it's a real report and something that needs to be investigated, then you all would be notified. So there would be a notification to the board if an investigation occurs. And one of the things that Matt, Arish, and I talked about is, you know, throughout all of this, ethics hotlines have been around for a couple of decades. And what's made them really successful is providing a way for employees to have a voice, right? And so we want to make sure that, you know, even though as the resolution comes about, and if there's any corrective action or disciplinary action that needs to be taken, of course, we'll close that and we'll have a record of that in the case management tool. But the person who reported it, what makes these things successful is that there's never any retaliatory measure that comes, you know, as a result of them making the report. And of course, they can make the report with or without their names. They can make a report with their name on it, or they can say, no, I just want to be anonymous. And there are many ways that they can come into the tool, either, like I said, through call in. which could be translated. There's a website, they can fax it, they can email it, and there's an app. So there's lots of ways that people can interact with the tool. And again, as it says on here, you know, certainly this process can be adjusted, but the main idea is that if anything names Josh, Mary Gail would automatically be notified, and then she would reach out to Chair Kaplan. On a monthly basis, ELT will receive a summary. So it'll say, you know, what are the categories of reports that come into the tool? And they're automatically categorized as compliance and ethics, HR, or fraud. And I suppose there's another category too, but generally everything's going to fall into one of those three categories. And every month, at the end of the month, ELT will get a report that says this is how many we've had in each of those categories. And I would recommend certainly too that the board also be notified of kind of what's happening at Dash. So not only, you know, obviously anything that names Josh, but also how many reports are we seeing? You know, the purpose of that, which is for you all to be aware of any trends that are coming in, you know, particular trends around, I don't know, bullying or whatever it might be, right? So, and then what mitigation are we doing to make sure we you know, again, mitigate those things? But I would recommend maybe we provide to you a biannual report, maybe June, January, so that you understand, you know, kind of how many have come in, you know, where are we seeing trends and what have we done about those trends, if that's amenable to you all. So really that's what I wanted to share. You know, that the other really cool thing about this tool is there's a digital suggestion box. So employers have found really two things. One is that typically if you have a hotline, there's still 60% of things that are concerns go to your supervisor anyway. About 20% are reported to the next level, but they're also finding that about 10% are either not reported because you don't have a hotline, or that 10% is what goes into the hotline. And that's been pretty consistent the past couple of many years now, that 10%. So when you think about if an organization doesn't have that outlet, there's 10% of the population or 10% of the concerns are unheard. And so this will give everybody that outlet to hopefully make sure that we're hearing everyone and that we're seeing everyone and that we're understanding what, you know, what concerns the workforce have, and we can follow up. And then, as I said, there's the digital suggestion box, which has similar numbers. You know, a lot of back in the day, right? You take a piece of paper and you drop it in a box, right? That kind of thing. This is the same concept, but it's digital. And through the app, you can either report an ethics violation or concern, but you can also report a suggestion. So we're super excited about that. Organizations that have a digital way of getting improvements to the work, to the process, to the customer service, anything along those lines that comes in digitally, they're seeing an uptick in innovation. So people start to see, hey, they listened. Hey, they implemented my idea. Well, now I'm going to do it because Ajaysh's got in, right? So it starts to become, you know, we're hoping that it can start to become a little bit of competition, things like that between departments. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share. And certainly if Mary Gail has anything to add as well.
No, I think you covered it very well, Yvonne. Great work.
Thank you.
I would just add a couple of items as well to this. First of all, the intention is that this diagram here that outlines what happens with me will go into your board policies. The policy as a whole for the organization is, of course, an organizational policy which doesn't go up to the board, but this will be memorialized. Mary Gail and I have started the work on drafting new policies for you all. In the next couple of months, we're going to have those ready to come to you so you can start talking about those. Obviously, just the timing and sequence of space within the meeting and staff time and that kind of stuff brings this ahead of that. And so that's just kind of how where this will land and how that process will exist. And we'll, of course, continue to keep the internal policy up to date on an annual basis, just like we do with our other policies, to tweak it and see if things are working and not working and where we can make improvements. Yvonne shared with me that you've experienced implementing these in other organizations, and there's a big wave usually at the beginning because people don't really know how to use it, or maybe there's a bunch of things that they're just they have grievances about, that they're frustrated about, and they may not necessarily be ethics complaints, but they put them in because they think they are, and we'll gradually kind of parse through that and help them to understand what the suggestion box is and work through those things to understand how can we better communicate some information about what's going on within the organization and what initiatives might be in place already to address some of those things that we may see as trends early on. And then hopefully it will have more of a sort of regular process as things get into place, but certainly understanding that we'll continue to keep you all updated as to how things are playing out, because it's a really important part of not only our workplace culture, but you know, our engagement and our ethics as an organization and how we treat people and how our people behave and within the organization as well. And lastly, I'll mention, we did do an employee engagement survey. We are planning still to bring that, a presentation on that back to the board soon. Again, it's just been sequence and timing of when we can get it into the meeting, but Yvonne will be doing that as well. So aligned with not only the ethics piece, there's a whole nother piece where we're working on the employee engagement, responding to that survey and implementing programs in place that will help to further improve our engagement and our engagement score within the workforce, and then reevaluating that to see how we're progressing. I'm just really excited about these things because these are measurable things that we can see change over time, especially having tools in place that help us to understand where we are and where we're going.
I'll start. Thank you very much for working through this, to our committee, for Matt and Arish for having come up with kind of a process for dealing with Josh. I have a question, because it occurred to me as we were talking about this. I would imagine a complaint would often name multiple people. So let's say we get a complaint that names your HR manager, you, and Josh. How is that? Does that have to come to us in its entirety? And how would we then be involved in sort of dealing with somebody like you, for example, who doesn't report directly to us?
Yeah, sure. Anything that names Josh will involve Mayor Gale. So I think at that point, then it would probably be Mary Gale and I talking about, you know, how do
But
we
you're named in
deal.
the complaint as well.
Okay,
so.
if I'm named in the complaint, then it might just be Mary Gale, then talking with Josh and or you. I mean, it really depends on
Okay.
the nature of the complaint,
She'll see who else is named.
for
right?
sure.
So if Mary Gale sees a whole bunch of people named, she might conclude, hey, this is where does this exist? And may parse that out starting with me. If it's very clear that it directly involves me or a scope of what I do, I think she would immediately talk with you, right, Mary Gale? I mean, I think that's.
Yeah, that's correct, because it could be that they just lumped a whole bunch of things together and there may or may not be connected. So as you said, you'd have to sort of parse out where the action is, where the complaint really lies, to make sure that we're properly addressing it in accordance with what we have here. And if it involves Josh, it would be handled by me in conjunction with the chair.
Appreciate the reporting aspect of it. Had talked with Josh a lot about, you know, the board can get some insight into how this is being used, and if there are trends, not getting into then specifics of complaints that don't need to come to us, but just understanding kind of the health of the organization. It's an important indicator, and certainly I think that schedule and frequency makes sense. I would suggest adding to that. I'd like to know, and this can be once a year instead of twice a year, how you are dealing with communicating this to employees. You've mentioned some things that you've already done, but is this incorporated into an employee meeting? Is it incorporated into supervisors training? So you can say, in the past year, we've done these things to make sure that it exists and that people know that it's out there. So it's not just sort of a flyer on a bulletin board that, you know, is there and fading over the years, but it sounds like there's a real commitment to this, and I think it shows us, it shows the community, it shows our workforce that, you know, we take these things seriously. And then finally, my very first HR job, I don't know if anyone knows this, was running an employee suggestion program at a large federal agency. And so, do we give out awards to people whose ideas are implemented and result in savings to the organization? Is there a
Yeah, it's a really great point. Today we actually started with SMT, the communication plan of getting this launched. And we did an exercise towards the end of the meeting about what are some of the ways that we have vehicles today already in the organization and maybe some new ways that we could make sure we get the word out, right? So that was done. But also harkening back in my career at Ritz-Carlton many years ago, I was a quality leader and we measured also good ideas, right? So we had a good idea board and we did do competition and awards for the best. So we did talk about that this morning. We don't have that set in place yet. But we're gonna have to just measure over time what suggestions we get, and then, I think some of those things will organically grow.
Yeah, okay, that's very encouraging. And then just last point, I don't, to what you were saying about you may see an uptick in complaints at the very beginning. I think that's actually not an unhealthy thing, because that means that people believe that it will be taken seriously and that it will be investigated. I think a workforce that is completely silent in the face of when management tries to, take their temperature, that to me is much more worrisome. So I don't think you're gonna see concern from the board just because those things are coming in. And I guess also just in the reporting, will we get to see whether complaints were substantiated or upheld versus kind of found not to be
Dismissed or whatever.
credible? Because I think that's important to know, what the outcome is. And then also if there's sort of an aging of complaints, so just to understand what was the timing, how long did it take to kind of investigate and adjudicate that complaint? Because you don't want to see something that goes on for 6 months, because that may indicate maybe it's an extremely complicated issue, but it also could indicate that maybe we don't want to know what the outcome is. And, so I think that those data points would be helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Others.
Is the digital suggestion box, can suggestions be anonymously submitted or?
Yep.
I'm also curious about the digital suggestion box. Like, what's the exact method for someone to submit something to it?
So there's an app, and as part of the rollout, there's going to be QR codes posted around where everyone can download the app firstly. We will also go over this in new hire orientation. There will be wallet cards that are given out about the ethics hotline itself, but also a sort of celebration of and communication of this box. So it's an app. And the app is very simple. It's a form that has only two things that are required. One is, what is your suggestion? And then they do sort of a CAPTCHA code to sort of just make sure that you're not a bot or whatever. So there's a CAPTCHA code that you fill in, you click submit, and then it comes automatically into the ELT box. So every submission and will generate an email to us that says there's a suggestion in the box. So that firstly, we can go, if there's a name, we can go and thank the person. And then, figure out what what is the suggestion and how we might go about implementing it.
Okay, so they have to install an app, and then it's name optional, suggestion, CAPTCHA.
That's it.
Do they have to register for an account
No.
before being able to? Okay, great.
You mentioned that the hotline was multilingual and had interpretation. So it sounds like the suggestion box is just whatever they type in goes directly to you. So are you thinking through plans of how to handle, suggestions that come in other languages?
There's an enhancement with this vendor where they're supposed to be implementing the Google Translate so that form could be typed and then translated as it comes into us. But if someone did type in another language, of course, we would deal with the translation here. The majority of our languages spoken, of course, there's some Spanish, but the majority is Amharic. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Question?
Yeah, so you said what you're calling it?
Oh, the ethics
You're
hotline.
just calling it the ethics hotline, even though it's also suggestions?
Well, ethics hotline and digital suggestions or a suggestion box, but we could come up with something clever to call the other side of it, because it really is two different things, but
Yeah.
it's about creating a speak up culture.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they feel very different. Very
Yeah.
different.
I mean, we could just call it speak up, right? Speak up, it could be things that are ethics issues, but it could also be speak up, I want to hear from you about your suggestion. So, good point.
Be an employee competition.
Yes, exactly. That's true. Great. Thanks, everyone.
It's very, very good. Thank you.
Love that engagement.
All right, the only other item in my report is,
Bye, everyone.
bye, Mary Gail, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
So, included in your packet is a ridership number as well as here. We're evening out quite a bit. The thing I would say is get ready for a dip in our ridership come October into this month for obvious reasons. We don't know what that'll look like, but we certainly are anticipating that. The other thing I would say is just echoing what Vice Chair O'Connell said. I thought the event, the groundbreaking was excellent, and we appreciate everyone coming out to support that in the community. Heard a lot of good feedback, and we were pleased with the remarks from our speakers who really supported what we're doing. That project, as a reminder, it's been handed over to the contractor. We believe shovels will be in the ground sometime in the next couple of months. December is when they'll start moving dirt. So we'll have a very active construction project for the better part of
The whole next year, calendar year.
the whole next calendar year. That's why I keep Raymond around. He knows what's going on with this stuff. But a lot of active capital projects outside of that as well, with additional bus procurements. A whole bunch of electric buses are coming soon. And those are going to be largely built by Gillig. So that is an existing manufacturer we have, but we don't have any of their electric products. So we're very optimistic about that. The team and I will be going out to Livermore, California, right? Is that where their plant is, to meet with them in the early part of December to discuss that build and do an audit of that. So hopefully very soon we'll be starting to see those buses roll in short after that in production. So a lot of great stuff coming. Of course, there'll be more updates and discussion around capital projects and everything like that in the coming months when we have the opportunity to slot in the presentations. The last thing I would say is there are a number of things that we are tracking to follow up with you on. And I just wanted to acknowledge that those are coming to you. We're parsing out the timing and respecting the time frame and allocation of the meetings and when you have action items and so forth. One of the action items there, though, is debriefing with you from the joint work session. So we anticipate that coming within the next meeting. We'll also be sitting down to talk with you about the strategic plan as informed by the discussion around the joint work session and summarizing that, as well as a handful of other initiatives and projects that we're looking forward to talking with you all about. So if there's anything, some of you have mentioned individual items to me on the side. I have captured those and we're working those in. If for some reason in the next couple of months you don't hear about something that you're looking for us to talk with you all about that you may have asked about previously, please remind me. We're doing our best to kind of keep track of the various items and also just parse out what our staff capacity is to put together information around those items and bring them to you. But we will continue to work on that and building out that schedule. So more stuff to come. Yes, sir.
So if Gillig is a new electric bus provider, do they have a standard charging like apparatus that will fit the other
Yes.
two suppliers?
Yes, they're new to us, but they have quite a few electric buses out there already in service.
I mean, can our current infrastructure charge their buses, or do
Yes.
we need, okay.
Yes, and the additional building will be with a place where pretty much all our electric buses will charge, and those are universal chargers for all three types of buses that we have.
And does Gillig have a backlog of production, or are they
Oh,
like
yeah.
turning them out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they the only remaining US manufacturer of?
Well, them and New Flyer,
Okay.
although New Flyer is headquartered in Canada, their
Yeah.
production is all in the United States. So both of those are the ones that meet Buy America, and of course, this set of buses, a large chunk of the set of buses has federal dollars in it. So they are subject to those federal requirements. Now, we've got a set of buses further out with other money, state and local money. We're actually exploring BYD as well as a provider for those to see what options we have, as well as any others that we might be able to look into. So the theme again is diversified fleet strategy, which was where we started, to ensure that we don't have all of our everything in one basket, and we don't end up in a situation that completely ruins us and takes our entire fleet down. And we're going to continue to look at that, but there'll be more discussion around that with the capital discussions.
I think I appreciate the diversified fleet, but then the other side, then your maintenance people may need to learn 3 different systems or whatever. So,
Well, we have an outstanding maintenance team John, I don't know if you all have had a chance to meet John. John is our new director of maintenance. I don't know if you.
No, I don't think we have.
You all met? He's been working hard with the team to kind of work through their processes and understand how they support the equipment. So doing an outstanding job with the team, he hit the ground running, and has actually had a little bit of assistance from another John that you all might remember, was just John Lanoka, has been down a few days a week to help John orient on the various stuff that we're working on, and where we've got backlogs and what we're trying to do as far as our electric vehicles. But yes, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a big preference item, and oftentimes on the maintenance side, it is a preference to have a fleet that is universally all the same product. But we have a team that has always worked with a mixed fleet ever since day one, so they're pretty accustomed to it. I think they do a great job managing it.
May I ask, John, where did you come from and when did you start at Dash?
BWI, I started about 4 months ago.
Sorry I didn't get you introduced earlier. Maybe you were in the meeting and you were hiding in the back somewhere, or you were online, but.
I was fixing buses.
Fixing buses, there we go. All right, so that's all I have, Mr. Chair. If it's okay with you, I'd like to bring Cato Carter up to discuss the agency safety plan. Here is a clicker for you for your slides. There to the right, and to the left if you go too far. I'll be back right up.
Hello, everyone. What's different than standing up?
It's a little more intimate. It's easier, right? Yeah.
Josh said, my name is Cato Carter, Director of Safety and Security here. I'm here to just give you a little overview of our agency safety plan for your consideration this afternoon. So why are we here? Back in 2021, the bipartisan infrastructure law was signed into effect. And what that did was it put a lot of federal resources and attention on the infrastructure and transportation of the United States. So we're talking transit, roads, bridges, the whole 9 yards. As part of that, the Federal Transit Administration came out with the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan regulation, which is the 49 CFR Part 673 that you see up there. And what that did was it gave guidelines to all the transit agencies on what they wanted to see for us put into effect to be what they consider a safe transit agency. So that gives us a framework for how we ensure our safety, it's continuous improvement in compliances. And then it also follows those 4 tenets of the safety management system that you see right there. This has been reviewed by our leadership with and also by a group of external consultants. I've lost count of how many drafts back and forth we've had to do on this. The final step is approval by you all. Key thing to note here is that this is not an aspirational document. This is just memorializing what Dash already does. They just want to see, what do you do and how do you do it? So, what are the commitments that this policy is having for us? The main thing that's a real tenet of SMS is a top-down buy-in to agency safety, which is why if you look at page 2 of the document, not page 2, sorry, page 3, I believe it is, and the last page of it, there's 3 signature lines in this. You've got the board, you've got Josh, and you also have our safety and security committee as well, because we want to make sure that safety is taken very, very seriously across all levels of the organization. It gives us that commitment to maintaining compliance with these regulations, encourages non-punitive safety reporting, which I'll come back to in a later slide. Make sure that we give safety the adequate resources that it needs to function as it's supposed to. And there's that continual monitoring to make sure that it's not, okay, we signed it, we're good. We need to constantly get feedback and act on that feedback to make sure that we're staying up on safety. So as part of this document, there are some objectives and some targets that they are required as part of it. Objectives are fostering our safety culture, making sure that everyone knows that safety is everyone's responsibility, not just the Department of Safety and Security, not just Josh, it's every single employee altogether. That focus on continuous improvement. And then communication and training for all roles, the key there also being the communication, because if you have punishments for people that are reporting, unsafe things that they see or may have almost done, a near miss, you can't have an open dialogue with someone. So you really need to make it clear to people that if you report something that almost happened, you don't get punishment for that. And then we have those different categories of targets there. Something to note about the targets is that they are based on our own historical data, but these are NTD, the National Transit Database metrics. And their bar for a lot of these numbers here is a lot higher than what we internally generate. So, when you see 0, 0, 6, we might internally have more than those, but because NTD has that higher threshold, the numbers are a lot smaller than what you see than what we might have. So how do we manage risk? On the left there is how we collect information. So you've got our pre and post trip inspections, reports to managers, dispatchers, or on our website, or the committee discovers something and they discuss that. Then on the right there, risk mitigation, that's what do we do about the risks that we are getting information about. So, to pick on Josh here for a second, if we get reports that, Josh has hit his mirror 3 times on a specific pole at a specific place, now we look at, okay, does Josh suck? Do we need to retrain him? Do we need to do something about how we route near that pole? Do we need to see if we can get that pole removed? All of those different pieces come into effect. To the same end, if Josh also were to use one of our reporting functions to say, I almost hit this pole several times here, help, so that I don't eventually hit this pole, then we will look at it similar way without punishing Josh for almost hitting the pole. And then these bottom 2 are really our accountability functions. Like that example of the 3 times Josh took his mirror off, or him reporting it, keeping a record of that so that we can look back and say, this is what we've done to you all or any external partner that wants to look at that, as well as, doing our own self assessments, tracking our data, looking at those employee reports, and oversight from external partners. Safety assurance is kind of our guarantee to everyone on how we're going to maintain safety. It's the proactive measures, our performance monitoring, checking out road observations on our operators, catching things before they become a problem, things like that. A drug and alcohol testing program, making sure our operators aren't, drunk on the job, or under the influence of any substance while they're out behind the wheel. Again, the safety reporting monitoring that system. And then our event investigations, where we take something that did happen and determine how can we prevent this from happening again in the future. Then the final tenet of this whole thing is safety communication and training. All you see up there, all the different ways that we communicate with people. We have orientation, our message boards, departmental meetings, our various committees. We have quarterly safety and security meetings, which we're actually undergoing right now throughout the month of October, November. Ongoing review of our data, and then operator training and maintenance training. Our Department of Training is very good at taking the tenets that are outlined in this policy, as well as other trends that we've seen, you know, things that they know from being trainers that make a good operator once they're out on the street, taking that and applying that to our new employees, so that right from the get-go, they're up to our DASH standards. Questions? Yes.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I've dealt with these for years. Just a couple things, like on section 7 on the safety reporting, who actually judges whether something's gross negligence?
Do you know what page that is?
Page 7. It's just the near miss, basically.
Oh, okay. So, was that?
It's in the document itself.
Yeah.
It's not in your.
So the middle part here where you see the risk assessment chart, my apologies, that's kind of skipped over that piece. It kind of rates anything that comes through my department on the severity of it. And then we have a tier list that's actually in here.
So, I mean, like in the appendix, you don't define gross negligence,
Mhm.
but do you have a working definition of gross negligence?
Yeah, so oh, you mean like as far as not the severity of it, but it was like.
Just like, yeah, so they'll know like,
Yeah.
hey, this is gross negligence,
Yeah.
because it's a legal term and you may not
Yeah,
know what it is. And then the other thing is in the appendix or the index for definitions, safety management system is a formal top-down. Why do you call it top-down and just not like a 360, since safety is everybody's concern equally?
that's basically the industry way of referring to it. They in the guidance, they use top down, top down, top down. So it's just, I just used it.
Okay,
that term.
okay.
As far as your gross negligence, that's property damage and person damage. So we look at.
No, I mean, I know what it,
We have,
what that.
so we have thresholds for the two. So
But like if I just, I'm not looking at something and I take Josh takes the side view mirror.
Mhm.
But he's a former state national rodeo champion, so that's like. He's never told you that.
No, yeah.
No, but I mean, the difference is like I'm talking to a passenger and I smack something that's probably just regular negligence, but what's gross negligence? Like, how would an operator know, like, ooh, now I may be in some trouble? You know what I mean? Like a definition would be nice to have, and I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm sure you could find one under the FTA or something like that.
Yeah, usually, like, that's why I'm stumbling a little bit. It's usually we look at that, we look at the impact to how much damage was done to the vehicle, other property, as well as, any individuals on there. But I see what you're saying.
Because it's the driver's action that
Yeah.
constitutes the gross or not, whatever type of negligence it is. It isn't the damage per se that comes after.
Yeah.
Right, you know what I mean? So anyway, I don't
And
want
the-
to.
And the other part of this too is that with safety, we talk more in terms of preventability than negligence. So we more look at what could the operator have reasonably done to
Yeah.
prevent anything from happening.
Corrective action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but, yeah. Let's talk. We'll
Okay.
talk offline. I don't want to waste.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question about the metrics. This is in the table on page 6. The metrics that are in there related to injuries and safety events are both in terms of per 100,000 revenue miles.
Yes.
And so I'm kind of making the assumption that those relate to things that would happen when an operator has the bus in revenue service, as opposed to things that may happen inside the facility with maintenance, fueling, cleaning, anything that kind of happens in-house, where I would expect to see more standard like workplace safety metrics, such as like a lost time incident rate, JART rate, recordables, things like that are
So that-
usually more measured in terms of
In
hours
terms-
worked.
That is what we do.
Okay.
But, I guess there's a reminder for this document, this is regulated. So like the numbers and the terms.
They're not
and
asking
that
for
you're
that.
seeing in that, that's not what they're asking for.
I see. Okay.
But internally, that is spot on there.
Okay, got it. What are the metrics that you use internally for that?
Say that again?
What are the metrics that you use internally
For,
for things like recordables, lost time, days away?
so days away, lost time, that kind of goes into the, I'm blanking on the term for it right now, workers' compensation, things like that. We look into, other variables that go into, like what caused a particular thing to happen. Yeah, I had to look at all of it, but yeah, there's a lot of different points that we go into.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested when the department comes back and sort of in our regular department meetings to know what those are and how Dash performs relative to industry peer benchmarks.
Any other questions?
Well, I just wanted to ask, you mentioned having vetted this with kind of outside safety consultants and but that this is largely aggregation of things that Dash was already doing that we can report to FDA. Was there anything, best practices or anything that you learned or have modified as a result of some of those conversations with outside consultants?
The main one is the Safety and Security Committee, and that's less a new thing and more a change of how it was originally designed. So we did have, the idea for that is to have a management and a union represented population, like equal parts that review the events that come through, events and safety concerns. And that was also part of our event review committee. And now what we've done is taken that part of it out of it, changed the composition of who is on it a little bit, kept the union piece because we have to, and made it its own separate thing.
So the event review committee is now separate from the safety and security.
Correct.
And then with this plan, so I understand that this is an FTA requirement because we're now accepting FTA money towards the low-no purchase of buses. How often does this come back to the board for review?
So page 2 has our little timeline of how we're gonna do this. It'll be an annual thing.
And is the anticipated that the plan itself will change from year to year? I mean, is there, or is it, we're gonna be setting up the same plan, or are we kind of setting up how we did with the metrics that are identified in the plan?
So the metrics will likely change. The regulation does change periodically. And internally, we might identify some additional things that we would like to do to put in place, and then we memorialize them in this document.
Anything else?
So I believe there's an action item for you all to approve, and I believe the chair will sign this as the chair of the board once the board approves it as such. And this is,
Is there a motion to adopt the safety plan as presented?
Is there discussion?
Please, yeah, you don't have to.
Oh, I think that gross negligence.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too caught up on this. Is there any flexibility after we've approved it? Or, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if you approve now, that could be an item that goes into the revision that happens.
okay.
Like I said, this is a yearly thing, so this is not, I mean, this is the first version of it as well. So I imagine it's gonna change a little bit for the next one.
So the event review committee would be the ones to determine if something's gross negligent?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, so, yeah, like, we can probably talk and like maybe hash out a definition that everybody would be comfortable with, that's in the regs anyway, if it is, and go from there.
Does it need to be memorialized in the plan, or is something that they can stop of them?
Like, just for reference purposes, so
Okay.
they know what, like, because people need to know, like, what gross negligence is, and I think it's, well, it's like a reckless standard, almost like I was reckless disregard for normal or whatever the safety is. But you know, operators would want to know that. The ERC would definitely want to know that.
Yeah,
Because it's not, you know, damage by itself is nothing. It's not conclusive. You know, everybody has accidents that could be purely negligent, and have a lot of damage, or you could be reckless and have little damage, which, which is worse. Reckless is far worse because you got somebody who did something that they shouldn't have done. Accidents happen. So, I mean, with that, well, go ahead.
That's true. I just want to make sure I understand what we're doing. So my understanding from the response of my question is that this is a compliance activity, basically with an FTA requirement. It's not like a comprehensive safety document for Dash. Okay, so it's written to be scoped to the whatever compliance directive is given.
But it becomes the policy of Dash.
It's the policy of Dash already. It's just telling, it's
Gotcha.
reporting out what we are already doing. That's why like some of the metrics and things like that, like I was saying with the NTD thing, it's much lesser than what we internally do, is because, they're not looking at certain things as even being a reportable thing at all. Whereas internally, our list is much, much bigger.
Yvonne may have more to add since she was.
With workers' negligence, FTA doesn't currently have an official definition. They sort of leave it up to each individual agency to define based on scope of, size and, all of that, right? And then also relative to how we investigate, which, as Cato talked about the ERC that's now in place. There's very specific guidelines that we do use from Transportation Safety Institute, which drives all the safety management, that there's components that you talked about at the beginning.
So not knowing the collective bargaining agreement well, is there anything on there on discipline? And if something's negligent versus gross negligence,
So-
driver will be penalized or whatever?
So we do preventability, and preventability levels each preventability level has an associated level of discipline with it. Level 4 being, I guess, what you would consider gross negligence.
Okay.
But, the term negligence kind of throws me off because it's not a word that we really use.
Sure.
We really look more at that preventability than negligence. And, part of that is looking at what the operator does or does not do, but we never really call it negligence.
Yeah, I mean, the opposite of negligence, and it is in here, is intention.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot that goes in between those two, polar opposites. So anyway, with that, I'm good.
So moves.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thanks, Cato.
Thank you.
And then next up, we have Edward, yeah, of course. Who's back to talk to us about the process as Edward gets ready to kind of go over the information he has for you all. I just want to say that he and the team have worked very hard and done an excellent job of pulling together what I think is a very solid budget proposal for next year. And not to steal too much of his thunder, but there are a lot of challenges and things that we're trying to sort of work in and work together to ensure that there's a minimal impact on the demands for the city as far as additional money. Of course, he's going to go over current services. He's going to discuss reductions, and then I want to talk about supplementals because I have an alternative approach to that I want to discuss with the board. But again, I just wanted to give credit to the team for what they're doing, and they've done some creative things to make this work. So.
Let's hear talking about 25 and 26, and now we'll talk about FY 27. So first I want to give a little bit of background on the fiscal environment for the city and kind of the environment we have to work within. So this past Saturday, November 1st, we attended, actually 3 of us were all sitting in a row. We attended the city council's budget retreat where they went over some of kind of the environment that the city is facing, some of the pressures that are impacting the budget, and some of the guidance that city agencies and city partner agencies have been given. So basically, the main takeaways from this overall were that revenue growth for the city is pretty much flat. About 60% of the city's revenue comes from property tax. And Residential real estate is growing, but at a very slow rate, about 2.7%. And commercial real estate is completely flat. So that's one of kind of the reality that the city is facing, is this very low growth scenario. Just to give you an idea of what chunk of the pie transit makes up, transit as a total makes up a little less than 5.5% of the city's overall budget. That includes the WMATA contributions as well as dashes. So the other situations facing the city are there are multiple collective bargaining agreements going on right now, fire, police, school systems. So all of those have kind of come together for a very tight fiscal environment. So basically, given that the guidance from the city manager was that all city departments and partner agencies should hold their budgets flat and only have non-discretionary increases, really trying to target a 1.5% subsidy increase from FY 2026. See, that's very, very constrained environment. So as I present the FY 27 budget and what we've done, I did want to give kind of a reminder of the composition of Dash's budget overall. So consistently about 80% of our budget is personnel. Then you've got 5% is maintenance, 5% is fuel. Really, the main takeaway from this is that 99% of our budget is truly non-discretionary. Just about 1% of our budget is training and employee recognition. So that's our discretionary budget, is really our workforce development. So in going into current services, there are a number of factors that are impacting Dash specifically. We've got the anticipated CBA wage increase. This was a negotiating year that's still ongoing. We're hopeful to be able to get the 1-year extension, but there are things that go into that as well. So we've got those demands on our budget this year. Every year we do have the annual step increases as people move up the pay scale. Then, as has been the theme in the last several fiscal years, we do have increased maintenance costs. Parts are getting more expensive because of tariffs, inflation, all of those items. So in order to be able to meet all of those demands and live within the fiscal reality that we were facing, we did have to scale down a number of reliability improvements. We're not cutting service. We don't want to cut service, but we did have built into our FY 26 budget. We were hopeful to be able to address some of the work-life balance, run cutting, things that we're doing to have improvements so that if an operator falls behind schedule, we could bring them back up to schedule. So we had to look into some of those planned improvements in order to fund the demands of our budget. So what does that mean as far as a takeaway? In total, really scrubbing our budget, going through everything we could possibly do without having to touch service, but meet the demands of our wage increases. We ended up with an increase of just over $1 million, which is 2.7% increase. The actual subsidy increase is about $980K. We also had a slight increase to miscellaneous revenue because we've looked at the past years, the insurance recoveries, which make up the bulk of that, and we felt we could raise it a bit to meet what we'd actually been seeing. So I did speak actually this morning with city budget staff to kind of give them a heads up that we are looking at a 2.7% increase, knowing that the city manager wanted a 1.5 target. And the message they gave me was, we really appreciate that you've gone through your budget. We understand you've done everything you can do. Thank you for this. We obviously it's up to your board what you put forward, but I think at the end of the day, the city's budget office is very understanding that we, made every effort to keep everything as minimal as possible while meeting the demands of just basically running our service and keeping current services without touching any cuts to service. If we had not looked at touching those reliability and work-life improvements that we had planned, we were looking at about a 7.7% increase, which would have been 1.8 million. An additional, 1.8 million. And that kind of cascades because you've got more mileage, more hours, more fuel, all of those things go into that, right? So this is where we're looking at 2.7% increase year over year. That is the lowest year over year increase we've had in the last several fiscal years since we've unionized and since the new Dash network has come out. And in the packet, there is a table that gives kind of for context what the last several fiscal years have seen as far as growth. So adopting this budget is an action item for tonight, and I'd open up to any questions on our current services budget.
I'll just add a little bit of additional context for you all. Obviously, we're still actively in negotiations, and those are obviously things we can't discuss right now, but I will tell you that we feel confident that what we're putting in here will address the needs for us to secure that 1-year contract. And also that we have discussed extensively with the team, with the negotiation team, to understand that a lot of the things that we're pulling out of here would have direct impacts on schedule run times and various other factors that directly impact our workforce. And so the question has been presented: what's more important? The amount of money that you take home, understanding that you're going to be sacrificing some challenging things that we're trying to address for you in the long term. And so we've heard that message from our workforce. We're continuing to work with them and respond to them and have a discussion around what are the priorities and what are the things that we can do. But we feel confident that what we're putting forth here, we will be able to work within, while still continuing to address some of the most critical aspects of service reliability pieces that we need to address. I would reiterate again that nothing that is being used here has been seen. In other words, it's not like we have something going on out there that's going to be pulled or changed. It just means we're going to continue to operate largely the same way we do today. Whereas our teams had really been pushing more towards some improvements that would fundamentally change things like break times and various other factors that are built into the run cutting process. So I just wanted to highlight that, the parties, I think, understand there are trade-offs, and we all need to be willing to accept those trade-offs and understand that we have to make them when we have decisions like this. And I think the other aspect, as we've all discussed, is that, as mentioned, this is a particularly challenging year for the city with many collective bargaining agreements all coming at the same time. So we feel that this is the best approach for our workforce in moving forward, and that we'll be able to do it in the right way. So. Yeah. And as a reminder also, when you approve this will be submitted as a proposed current services budget, which is then subject to revision and further discussion by the board later on in the process, once the city's process has moved through its works. But yeah.
Well, and let me just ask in terms of process, are folks comfortable with doing this as a block with the reductions and the supplementals, or do you want to take these up as individual items when we vote?
I think traditionally you've done them as individual items.
Okay, okay, so we
Historically,
can do that. Is there a motion to adopt the proposed current services budget?
So moved.
Moved by Matt, second.
Second.
Give it to Acacia.
Okay.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? All right. Passes.
Thank you.
Next.
All right, so next we do have reductions. So every year, we've had this exercise. City manager gives guidance on a reduction target based on a percentage of the prior fiscal year's subsidy, general fund subsidy. So this year we were given a 1% reduction target that comes out to about $378,000. And so what we've done is put forward the same reductions that we had in the last fiscal year budget process. So this would be a reduction to the weekday peak service on lines 104 and 102, essentially taking that from every 30 minutes to once an hour. The proposed cuts, if these reductions were taken, would result in a projected annual reduction in boardings by about 60,000 and reduction in force of 3 FTE operators.
Also, I would just add that historically, we've talked about administrative reductions a number of years in a row, and we all, I feel, came to a great understanding that we're very invested in our workforce. So I want to make sure that professional development, training, those types of programs that we would otherwise potentially touch are not on the table. And that's why you don't see those in this particular proposal.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, as it presented kind of the structure of our budget, the things that we could cut administratively are so minuscule that you'd have to have service cuts on top of it to reach that target anyway.
Just for members of the public who may be monitoring this, because we are sending these up to comply with the request from the city to understand what a 1% reduction would mean to our budget. It doesn't mean A, that they are going to take that, include that in the proposed budget, or B, that if they do, that we are going to say, okay, that's all right, and we continue on with business as usual. We did face a proposed reduction to the 104, was that 2 years ago at this point? And, we lobbied the city council responded and restored that cut. I gave testimony at one of the city council budget hearings, and we had our DAC was involved in that, and a lot of community members spoke up in service. And I think the joint work session showed that there's a tremendous commitment not only to our current services, but also the needs that we have as we're going to get into as we talk about supplementals. So I just want to be clear to the community that, we're letting you know where we would go if we have a reduction, but that doesn't mean that this is going to happen, because I know that as a rider, anytime we talk about reductions, I get nervous, I get anxious, and anyone who rides these services may feel similarly. But I just want to be clear about where we stand and why we're discussing this now. And certainly, both the 102 and 104 are essential, given even more so than a year ago when we put these reductions up, because of the numbers of people when the government is open who commute to federal offices. These routes are essential for moving people during commuting hours. Is there further discussion on the reductions?
I have a question for the 3 positions. Are they currently not filled, or would people have to be losing their employment?
We would expect in a situation where there was a reduction that was taken and approved and went through the entire process and adopted by the board, that there would be enough advance notice, particularly with these, that we would use attrition to manage that. We have a natural rate of attrition. We're approaching 200 plus operators now. There's always people retiring or taking other jobs and those kinds of things. So we would proactively manage that and manage it through attrition. We would not intend to let anyone go who was currently employed. Unless the only time we can't manage something that way is if it comes down as an immediate with no prior knowledge, not in advance of the fiscal year. But in this situation with this type of process, we know well in advance.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Not as a motion to adopt the reductions as presented.
Oh, so moved.
You want to move the reductions?
Oh.
Move it something else.
Yeah, no, I don't want to.
Well, somebody has to. So.
I'll be the second on whoever moves. I'm happy to be the second.
Jesse, were you making a motion?
No, I'm happy to move it or second it. I was laughing at the comment.
Moves, Jesse seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? All right, motion carries.
All right, I'm going to handle this part of the conversation, but I again want to give credit to the entire team that's worked to put this information together. What I wanted to propose to you all this evening, this is the result of discussions that the board has previously had in the letter that was put together by the board and staff to the city manager regarding priorities and helping to address the unfunded ATV network improvements, also as was discussed in the joint work session back in September. The city has given clear budget guidance in this process that any supplementals must be accompanied in a submittal with a corresponding reduction to fund them. And the city is not accepting any supplementals that do not meet that criteria. We understand that and have had some discussions with city staff to understand the implications of Dash submitting a supplemental that doesn't have a corresponding reduction, which we all understand is it would be counterintuitive because your supplementals are intended to add service in accordance with a plan that has been approved by all bodies. So my recommendation to you all is to keep the information that is here, and instead of submitting them through the supplemental process as a supplemental, instead to consider drafting a letter to the city manager that outlines the unfunded improvements. Similar to the one that you've already sent as a priority, but it is very specifically speaking just to these. And indicating that there is no ability for Dash to bring forward corresponding reductions to fund these supplementals, rather that the board is acting under the plans, the guidance and agreements of council, the agreement of city manager, and so forth. What that would do is it would ensure that we then still follow the budget process, but in some ways it gets a little bit ahead of and gives a path towards the normal process, which is typically come the spring, you all will submit a letter, either a letter or there will be a budget question issued that asks specifically for the add delete process, what are the unfunded ATV network improvements? So we would check a lot of boxes here and also avoid creating a situation that the city that's adverse for the city and a challenge for the OMB staff to manage, while still accomplishing the goals of the board and the priorities that are shared between the board and city council to ensure we're highlighting these improvements and the necessary investment that's required for them. You all may take the action however you would like to, but that is my proposal based on my discussions with city staff and helping to understand how we could best do this in a way that doesn't disrupt the process, but maintains the visibility and the understanding of the needs to invest in additional Dash services as has been committed by all of the bodies.
Lori.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a fair way to do this. I would just ask, because these documents are not necessarily one and together, if this were to be a letter, would you include in there that the priority is funding additional service, right? Like you wouldn't want to have the reductions be taken and then these are the request, like seems like the goal would be to make sure that all current services funded as is first before any supplementals.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if I'm not reading it that way in here, but if we were to recraft into some kind of letter to the city manager, that might be something we'd want to include. So
Sure.
anyone who's just looking at this one piece of it is seeing both sides of it.
And if you all are agreeable to taking this process, I wanted to hear your feedback of the things that you think are particularly important to highlight in that letter so that we can then draft it and circulate it to you all for approval prior to submitting it. I did let staff know that, city staff know that by taking an alternative approach, we were not going to have something to them in their timeline. In other words, we would submit current services and the reductions in accordance with the timeline, but this information would probably come in next week or something like that. And that would be behind the deadline, but it was understood that that's the reason that would happen, is that this board still has to discuss that. We have to draft a letter, you have to approve it, and then we need to submit it.
I think this approach Josh and I had a chance to chat about this earlier today. I think this approach makes a lot of sense and gets us the visibility at the time in the budget process when we most need it and doesn't cause city staff to have to deviate from their normal process for Dash specifically because of our process, and doesn't make us seem as if we are ignoring requests for how our budget should be transmitted. So I think this makes sense. And also, given that we're doing this as part of our board meetings and in public, our public also, in addition to knowing what the reduction proposals are, also know what are the things that are most important to us in lobbying for improvements, and that will help public who want to speak up for Dash in the budget process begin to think about what's important to them and what the dollar amounts are associated with that.
I will also share that I'm going to be joining the DAC, the Dash Advisory Committee, for their meeting tomorrow evening and talking about all of this, debriefing them on this discussion. They are also crafting some communications that they're putting out, advocating for the investments in Dash that are necessary to serve our community. So I will ask them to make sure that a copy is provided to the board as well of the correspondence that they eventually decide they want to put together.
Is there a motion to approve the supplementals, and the, per the process that Josh discussed via a letter to the city manager?
So.
Moved by Matt, okay. I didn't know if Jason wanted to.
Oh, no.
Second.
I didn't, you didn't point at me this time.
I know you're touchy on the reductions. I don't know your status on the supplementals. I can switch it up if you want.
That's fine. Thank you.
You want a second?
Sure.
All right, Jason.
But then I'm not gonna vote.
All right, Jason, seconds. All, further discussion?
No,
No.
one question, Josh, were you planning on the table that goes along with this? Would that be part of the letter for
Yes.
extra information?
Yes, all of the previously discussed information, the justifications, the impacts, the equity scores and everything else would be built into that. I would just ask that if there is anything specifically you want to make sure we incorporate that you think of now, tonight, or tomorrow, email me, let me know what that is. We'll try to do our best to draft something that will work and then ask you all to provide feedback and edits to that so that we can finalize it as quickly as possible.
All right, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Passes unanimously.
Thank
you. All right, so we have come to the end of our agenda. To let you know that our next board meeting will be December 10th here at the Dash facility. And I suppose because we weren't able to be at City Hall this month, this may be, we have come to the end of our City Hall meetings.
Yes, but Beth has been working on a location for January, February.
I think in January, I believe it's Mark Center.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are going to change up the location in the spring. We just won't be able to obviously use City Hall.
Yeah.
But we are working to secure to move around a little bit, as we know you all would like to be out in the community when you're in your meetings as well. So, and don't forget that in December, that is the holidays, and we are pleased to provide you all a meal. Hopefully that entices everybody to come and be energized, and we'll load up the meeting with lots of great discussion items in accordance, but yes.
It's hard to believe we are already at the end of, almost at the end of 2025, but here we are. Is there further business to come before the board this evening? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. By Praveen, is there a second?
Second.
Hillary, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody.
No one.
Better Robert's rules.
Nobody.